In 1989, W.P. Kinsella's novel, Shoeless Joe, became the classic film, Field of Dreams. The movie was filmed on a baseball diamond carved in a cornfield in Iowa. Since the release of the movie, over 600,000 people from all over the world have traveled to visit the field. W.P. Kinsella's vision is a phenomenon.
Dad, why do people come here? It is kind of strange to me. I think there's just something about the story in the movie that kind of captures people's imagination. It's kind of a place where you can just lose yourself in the game a little bit in another place and time.
There's a group of us that came here, and we talked about coming here for a couple of years, and we're spending 3 days to come here do this weekend, and we don't know why. We're not sure yet, but hopefully we're going to figure out why we're here.
This place, this field, this place in America, this place in our hearts, this field of dreams is magical. You want to go through the corn stalks. You want to sit in the stands. And when you've seen the Field of Dreams, you just never get over it. You just keep coming back to that dream.
Now, I don't know if Mr. Kinsella had that in mind when he put this book together, but he has created something.
It's remarkable that 20 years after the movie, and there's still so many people coming, that has to say something about the draw, because all it is a big plot of grass in the middle of a cornfield, really. That's all it is, but it's what it represents. That's the draw, not the field itself.
I bet if you asked 100 people that walked away from here, you'll have 95 different reasons why they came. But there might be one theme, intertwining in there someplace, I would guess.
I never think in the terms of themes. That I have no idea. I leave that to the academic drones to come up with themes in my work. I'm writing a column about the implied author syndrome. Readers read fiction and they assume that the writer has experienced what the main character in the novel experiences. Baseball people assume that I've played Major League Baseball or at least have played a great deal of baseball, which I haven't. You don't have to commit suicide in order to write about it. You only have to make it believable.
I would think the writer of this story would have been one of us, it's America and the underdog and doing what's right, and good things will happen to you.
I think he was probably somebody who was sentimental, had some deep relationships in his life that he wanted to talk about.
I get the impression that the writer is missing something. The writer is maybe carrying a burden of some sort.
He's a sort of a crusty guy, as I remember his personality that came through the book.
I certainly thought he was another person when we got together, and have been really quite shocked to find out who he really is. Bill is competitive.
Curmudgeonly, crusty.
An eccentric person.
The ultimate baseball fan.
Iconoclastic.
Irascible.
An alpha-type male.
All of those things.
Bill Kinsella is a magnificent writer. And fortunately for American literature, he's been able to put those things together.
Based on the story I know, Kinsella seems like a man who grew up in an environment very similar to this. Probably not a big city guy.
As my dad always said, it was 60 miles from Edmonton, but it might as well have been 6,000 because we were limited to driving with a horse and buggy, and we didn't have any amenities whatsoever. Now this was the front door, I guess. It seems so small. This is where I lived from the time I was born till I was 10, with my parents in the log cabin back here where we lived like 18th century Russian peasants with snow up to our navels in the winter and floodwater up to our navels in the summer, and just generally pretty bad conditions. We were at the end of the world. There was nothing beyond us. The road ended at our place. The nearest neighbors didn't have children, so I never saw any children while I was growing up. I had to create all my own diversions. I had to create games for myself and played with my cats and gave them names and created human identities for them. So I'm sure it had to do with my becoming a storyteller at a later date, because when I moved into Edmonton when I was 10, I wasn't interested in the petty games that the kids played. I mean, geez, hide and seek and kick the can, and I mean, that was so juvenile. I just didn't want to do it because I could create so many more wonderful things in my imagination. I read a great deal. We got the Toronto Star Weekly, and it would come 3 weeks late, but it didn't matter to us because time didn't matter. My dad was a plastering and stucco contractor before and after the Depression. He moved to the farm during the Depression because he was too proud to take welfare. He was a very pleasant guy. I took the first 5 grades of school by correspondence, and my mom was a real slave driver as far as teaching went, and I was probably a grade ahead when I came into students in the real world. And I'm not nostalgic about it. I would never want to live in circumstances like this, even if the house was new. I mean, it's I was very happy when we moved to Edmonton and never looked back. I virtually never saw another child until I was 10 years old and moved into the city, and I've been suffering from culture shock ever since. I was always, and have always been, an outsider. I attended East Glen High School in Edmonton. I'm not sure where they got that picture. It's quite a good picture, but it's from 20 years ago. I'm looking very fierce.
Drama students from East Glen, I would like to introduce the author and well-known writer, W.P. Kinsella, to East Glen High School.
The buses twine about each other, soliciting each other's warmth. They twist and glide across the desert, their shadows blue and eerie as they dance in the moonlight to a 3/4 time tune.
What made you want to start writing?
Well, I'm one of these people who woke up at age 5 knowing how to read and write. I wrote my first stories at age 5 and 6, little one-page stories called The Little Lost Flower and things like that. But that was how I got my start in writing, and I always kept it up. The first time I was rewarded for a story was, I think, grade 8. I wrote a short story called Diamond Doom, which was the story of a murder on a baseball diamond. The right fielder did it, and he had cut a little triangle in the grass in right field, and after he committed the crime, he hid the gun under the grass. But the astute detective came back a few months later after the grass had died and discovered the triangle and uncovered the murder weapon. I won a second or third prize for that. I had nothing to encourage me in high school, absolutely nothing. The guidance counselor here was named Frank McCoy. I will, of course, never forgive him because he, when I said that I wanted to be a writer, he said, well, you know, you get your degree as an accountant or an engineer and then you can write in your spare time. So he's burning in a special place for that advice that he gave me. I might have served my apprenticeship earlier and began getting published earlier, but I simply had no time. I had to hold down a job and keep food on the table. I worked for a finance company and I sold real estate for a while, and then I owned a pizza restaurant and knew nothing about it. Had never made a pizza until I opened the doors. Stamina is 85% of what you require to become a writer, and stamina is sitting down to write your 50th short story, knowing that the previous 49 have been failures, and that the 50th one will also be a failure, but it will be 1% better than the previous 49. I could have brought a folder of my rejection letters, really mean-spirited letters from editors. You've got to think that what you've written is really good, even if it isn't. But and the same with an actor. You've got to have confidence. You've got to walk out on stage and say, "I'm going to wow these guys." And even if you don't do so good, you still say, "I was really great." I've traveled across North America numerous times doing interviews and doing appearances and readings and so on, and you have to like that. I mean, some people practically die when they go out on these tours, and that because it's not in their nature to be outgoing. I mean, I'm not outgoing with the people that I meet on the tour, but I am when I get on stage.
You are such a performer. Like, it's such a rich experience for them to
well,
see you
what I didn't mention here was that when I was in university, they used to bring in all the big name authors, and so many of them were just so terrible. I mean, Margaret Atwood is the worst reader in the history of the world. Michael Ondaatje is right up there with her. And some of these other people that they brought, they have no business reading their work in public at all. And I said, if I ever get famous enough to do these kind of things, I am going to entertain my audience. I loved Iowa very much. I went there as a graduate student, and I really fell in love with it. I just happened to think what would happen if Joe Jackson came back to life in this time and place, because my dad had talked about Joe Jackson and what became of him after the Black Sox scandal. When I was writing seriously, I would write 2 days on, and then I would take a day off to catch up on all my correspondence and just rest myself from fiction writing for 24 hours. And I wrote 4 pages a day of new work, or the amount of revision that I considered equal to 4 pages of new material. 4 pages of new material will give you, I don't know what that is, about 80 pages a month, and 80 pages a month is almost 1,000 pages a year, so you can probably get 2 books out of that every year if you keep that up. I was very happy to get my first book published, and my second book, and my third book, but I wasn't making any money off them, so I was going to have to teach. I taught for 5 years at the University of Calgary each one longer than the one before. It was a very unpleasant experience.
Well, I don't think he really realized that he was going to hate it as much as he did till he was doing it. So he got into it and then realized that there's just about, it's all politics.
I taught bonehead English to a room full of students, 28 out of 30 of whom should never have been allowed on a university campus unless they were bussing tables in the cafeteria. It's that bad.
Bill made a large turning point when he basically told them to shove their tenure, and he said, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to be an academic who publishes. I'm going to be a writer.
The end of the second section of Shoeless Joe, I read that section aloud, and I knew I was on to something. And boy, if I can finish this, I think it's going to be really good. And at the time that Shoeless Joe was published, that was the point where I knew that I was probably going to be able to make a living as a writer, and fortunately I've been very successful. My father said he saw him years later playing in a 10th-rate commercial league in a textile town in Carolina, wearing shoes and an assumed name. He'd put on 50 pounds and the spring was gone from his step in the outfield, but he could still hit. Oh, how that man could hit. No one has ever been able to hit like Shoeless Joe.
Shoeless Joe just caught everybody's attention. It came at the right time in history, I think, and it surely in this country has become a classic.
Shoeless Joe resonated to Middle America, to the place where we were born.
To me, it was America. It was, you know, little guy won out. At least it was for me.
Baseball was referred to as the nation's pastime. So it meant something to everybody at one point. And what perfect way to connect to people from all corners of the country.
Happily, I discovered with that novel that there was a market for baseball fiction, and there were people out there panting for baseball fiction. And of course, finding something like that is like a prospector finding a vein of gold. You work it until every last nugget is extracted. So I kept writing baseball for the next 26 or 30 years. It was very nice to know that you could do something successfully, and there's a lot of I told you so in writing, all the evil people that I had worked for in the past, and all the academic drones who didn't like me and I didn't like them, and say, yeah, I'm making more money than you'll ever dream of, so screw you.
Kinsella himself has a reputation of being such a cranky, iconoclastic, sarcastic, dismissive sort of guy. And in this book, you have a feeling of a writer who has a very rich, deep feeling for loss and recovery and the need for human connection. It's a funny kind of dichotomy.
I was sitting on the veranda of my farm home in eastern Iowa when a voice very clearly said to me, "If you build it, he will come." The voice was that of a ballpark announcer. As he spoke, I instantly envisioned the finished product I knew I was being asked to conceive. For the novel, the voice tells him, if you build it, he will come, and he knows that he has to build a baseball stadium, and he thinks it's for Shoeless Joe Jackson, but it's actually for his father.
The theme of the boy's search for the father is really one of the central themes and the underpinning theme of the novel.
Everybody has part of their experience with their dad they'd like to clean up or fix. Who wouldn't want a second chance?
I don't know, it's weird because I had a weird relationship with my father. Died almost 13 years ago. And you still, during the day, don't go by where you don't think about him. So you could almost, I don't know. I was 18 years old before I realized for the first 18 years of my life, everything my father told me was true. And I should have listened to him. So, melancholy kind of thing. I don't know. I miss him today. It's just, I'm a traditionalist. I believe in tradition and the whole thing. It's the way he raised us. So I miss him when I'm doing things that are close to me. Family things, I don't know. It's just weird. Being here, I had to come here. I really don't know what else, I had to come here.
These are toys from when I was a child. They have a great deal of sentimental value for me, and this is my artwork. This was February 26, 1940, colored by Billy for Daddy. So 1940, I'd be 5. And that's my dad, and I believe he was a medic fought in France and was gassed, which sort of affected the rest of his life, and he died very young.
If you build it, they will come. It just opens up magical possibilities of the possible and the impossible.
Listening to a divine voice, so to speak, and following through and trying not to worry about what other people think about it.
Yeah.
And I think when we do that, if one believes in God, and there's your spiritual connection, that is what we learn what God is. We speak a benevolent, wonderful entity that speaks to us. And if we listen and follow it, good things happen.
Shoeless Joe is taught in religion classes, and I always get a great laugh out of that because I'm an atheist and have no interest in religion whatsoever. But it doesn't mean that I don't put things in. I like to, academics derive sexual satisfaction from finding allusions in literature. So I always try to put these kinds of things in. I mean, there's enough of that in Shoeless Joe to keep academics drooling and writing about life and death and existential experience for thousands of pages, which they have done.
In my opinion, WP is a Christian man. He has one strong voice in the movie, and I assume it's in the book too. The voice, that whispering voice that says to build it. And that seems like the voice of a singular God.
Is he someone that goes to church every week and who's active in a congregation, maybe in a traditional sense, as we were brought up? I don't know, but is he someone that has a belief? I would think so.
There is no magic, there are no gods, but I may be a wizard because it takes a wizard to know there are none. It's up to me to create magical situations that the reader will believe could possibly have happened. But I know they didn't happen, and I know there is no magic. Everything I do is very visual. I think that's the secret to it. Many of my books have been optioned for movie and optioned for television. That's how I've made a living the last 20 years. I think I have only made enough money from my writing in 1 year in my whole career that I could actually say I could have lived off my writing.
Shoeless Joe was under option for film, which ultimately became Field of Dreams, the movie. We, from time to time, had little celebrations when the option was renewed. And I remember the sad day when the option was exercised, which, it meant a nice lump sum payment to Bill, but it meant that this annual or twice-a-year stipend was coming to an end.
Hollywood is famous or infamous for destroying good books. The list is so long I won't even start, but it's rare, and one really appreciates it when it does happen, that Hollywood actually does justice, or at least commercial film industry somewhere, does justice to a book.
It's funny, it never occurred to me it would be hard. It occurred to everybody else smarter than me. I was too dumb to know it was a hard book to adapt. And I had the advantage of thinking about it for 5 years before I actually sat down and wrote it. And I thought about it a lot in that time, so that by the time I did sit down to write the screenplay, I pretty much decided what I would cut out, what I would emphasize, and I changed the order of a few things.
My biggest fear was that they would bring in a famous director who would say, well, this is a very nice little movie, but we need a car chase here, we need a fist fight here, we need some hot sex here, and that, of course, would have changed it entirely from what it was.
I had a plan in my mind, which is the nicest thing I can do for this audience, in addition to translating this book to the screen, which is sort of a gift back to the world for giving me this book, is we're going to assume that the audience is intelligent and instinctive and can understand things without having them spelled out. And so we never even attempt to spell out or explain, where does this voice come from? Who is the voice? Where does this magic come from? How does this magic happen? It doesn't matter.
And when I read the screenplay, I had tears in my eyes, and I said, my God, this is my own work that's doing this to me. I said, if this can just get to the screen like it is, it will be absolutely wonderful.
If you build it, he will come.
You build what? Who will come?
He didn't say.
I hate it when that happens.
Me too.
Who's hearing voices?
Ray is.
It was a great adaptation of a book that people who seem to love this book a lot. So I think those who've read the book are going to feel real good by this particular adaptation.
I couldn't assess it when I read it. I was immediately affected. I was crying for reasons I did not understand. And so my intellectual abilities were just sort of set aside. I couldn't say great screenplay. I knew I liked it. That's all I knew. And then when I saw the film, after we'd all worked on it, same thing happened. I started crying when the score came on.
And I don't think anybody took it seriously when they filmed it. Even the guys that were in the movie, they all thought it was going to be a dog. But then as they started putting it all together and they sat down and watched it the first time, then they realized it's pretty damn cool.
Unbelievable.
It's more than that. It's perfect.
You build a baseball field in the middle of nowhere and you sit here and you stare at nothing.
This field, this gate, is a part of our past, Ray. It reminds us of all that once was good.
Hey, this heaven? No. It's Iowa.
I'm reminded of the line in the movie, is this heaven? No, it's Iowa. And I can remember thinking, the rest of the country is going to see this movie, and they're going to think, wow, that's really corny. But that didn't happen at all. Not at all. It was embraced so thoroughly.
Well, it made men cry. That was the thing about it.
It's a stunning thing. People have come up to us after screenings and just walked up with tears in their eyes and just shook our hands and said, thank you for making this film.
I think to me, the movie, I saw it when it came out in 88, was it, or something like that? Great movie. Hadn't seen it until last year when we came out and did this. And I put it in there, had forgotten most of the movie. I cried at the end. It was just an unbelievably moving movie. And then to take that and extend it to the real place, with Dad is cool. Yeah, it's really neat.
It gives you goosebumps when we see the movie.
And it has had a profound impact, I think, on our society.
The book was interesting, but the movie was what caught the imagination. They could see it. They didn't have to read it. Americans don't read much anymore. They could see it, and they felt it. And whether it's in baseball, whether it's in the culture of where he grew up, Bill Kinsella feels things that other people don't feel.
That last scene when the camera pans up at night and you see that snaking of cars to fulfill, if you build it, they will come.
And here they come.
Just,
in spades.
Don't get me talking about this. I can get emotional every time I talk about it.
Where's the handkerchief here?
I saw the movie many times, and you could hear the sniffling in the movie, and it truly affected a lot of people. And I got thousands of letters about the father-son thing. Men who had been estranged from their father and drove from Arizona to Connecticut to take the old man to a baseball game, and later on to take the old man to a Field of Dreams to visit the actual field. Nice seeing you again.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Shannon Kinsella. We are proud to present my favorite author, W.P. Kinsella.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to start with a poem from which you will see why I've made my living as a fiction writer for the last 40 years. Now, Flynn came up with 7, and Blake did pony 4, and yeah, I enjoy doing that. I like to be the bride at every wedding and the corpse at every funeral, so if you can be the center of attention for an hour, it's quite fun. I have, 7 or 8 books of stories about Silas Ermineskin, his friend Frank Fencepost, and the medicine lady Mad Etta. I was living in Victoria trying to think of something to write for a creative writing course I was taking. I thought of a couple I knew casually where the young woman was native. She was a model and she was married to a white photographer. And I just thought, what kind of problems would a native girl have bringing a very straight and not very bright white man home to the reserve to meet her family? And that was where the story Ileana Comes Home came from. And when I got finished that, I thought, gee, I've got a good voice here. And a little while later, I thought of another story, and I thought, gee, I could tell it from Silas's voice. We knew it had never been there anyway if Frank hadn't learned to read and write. Now, just to show off, he read everything in the Wetaskiwin Times every week, even the ads.
I just felt that Kinsella's book, when I read it, and he was from Alberta, when I read the book about the experiences on a native Aboriginal reserve, and the characters, I just loved the characters. So I got together and I met with him and Kinsella, and he didn't want anything to do with the screenplay.
Yeah, the reason I didn't want anything to do with the screenplay was because they wanted to pay me scale, and I was earning too much money at the time to be bothered working for scale for anybody.
So I just took one story, one short story, Dance Me Outside, and I got Bruce McDonald, and we got together and made this film.
Those cowardly rodents tremble before me. I am the Wolverine.
The young native actors in Dance Me Outside were wonderful, but I thought the writing was poor, the editing was abysmal, and the directing was pretty amateurish.
You asked me what I'm going to do, and I see exactly where this is going. And I don't want...
There was a lot of criticism about the film and about the book, and just, how his voice was so inaccurate, in the book. And I stood up for him at the end of the show, and he ended up being in the audience. So I got a chance to meet him, and I was just at the time saying, you know what, as a writer, you're allowed to speak about whatever you want to speak about.
Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. No. No, I've actually never been there. I didn't want to confuse fact and fiction. So.
Oh my gosh. You're gonna just drove Yuma, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I've driven by, but I've never been there. Well, I wrote the first few books when I was living on the coast. Yeah, I've never been to Hobbema, I mean, other than to drive by. No, you don't need to commit suicide in order to write about it. Give me 2 pieces of flora, 2 pieces of fauna, and a couple of street names, and I'll set a story anywhere in the world and make you believe that I've been there. I had all kinds of problems when my first book, Dance Me Outside, came out. Reporters were madly calling around Hobbema trying to arrange an interview with me because they thought that I had to live there because it was so authentic what I had written.
After I learned a little bit more about his experience, my view started to change. You don't have to commit suicide to write about suicide, but you do have to speak to people who have been affected by suicide and who have been on the brink of committing suicide. And I think that comes down to the same thing. If you're gonna write about doctors, don't write out of your ass, excuse my language. You know, go to a hospital, go meet doctors, go talk to them, figure out what it's like.
Guy, quick, Gooch.
Dance Me Outside was a punch right between the eyes. It was a powerful statement that he made about the history of relationships in Alberta. And I can see it being a very controversial thing in a movie.
Be careful with this, would you say? Brand new? Yeah, it's brand new.
People like to write around things like that. Bill didn't write around it. He wrote right through it.
Let's go see Jasper Deer, says Frank. There's a $200 entry fee to be raised. Jasper is employed by Sports Canada. I'm not sure what Sports Canada does, but I know they figure if they give all us Indians enough hockey sticks, basketballs, and volleyballs, we forget about our land claims, don't drink too much, get good jobs so we can have the weekends off to play games.
People reading the Indian stories or who have heard of the Indian stories don't realize that is mostly what they are, is criticisms of government policies and criticisms of the white man in Canada. And I may not agree with him, and he can be very harsh, and he is from a different generation. He's from the Depression era, and I'm not. But I have to respect where he's coming from, and that he has the balls enough to have a voice and to use the voice.
On the positive, his stories put a perspective and a part of the Canadian society into the mainstream. That's a good thing. It wasn't negative, it just was one-dimensional.
Bill was in the middle of 2 screenplays. We had just gotten back together after being separated for almost 2 years. And it was a month later. And we'd had dinner and we went for a walk around the park and came around the block, and a car backed out of an alley. The driver was against the fence, couldn't see, and crashed into Bill and knocked him backwards onto concrete.
I remember my head hitting the sidewalk and coming up, and I thought that son of a bitch is going to run over my ankle. And that was the last thing I remembered for 10 minutes or so.
I was completely in shock. To say my life was flashing before my eyes would be the smallest thing. I thought he was dying.
For the first 3 months or so, maybe 6 months, I was like an old man. I walked slowly, and I had some kind of vertigo anyway. When I would lay down, the room would spin like this for 20 seconds or something, and it was quite unpleasant. But after about 6 months, I was generally all right, except I just didn't have any particular desire to write anymore.
4? Yep, that's the second blanket.
Bill is playing competitive Scrabble to my great, not to my despair. I mean, Bill, it's fair to say, wrote wonderful stories and novels for a very long time, but it may have been that he was ready to retire.
The publishing industry was changing very much at the time. My books were not selling as well as they had. I think my last collection of Silas stories sold a couple of thousand copies, which was ridiculous. But so I think I got out of the writing business at the right time. I'm glad that I wasn't grubbing for money and that I didn't have to turn out a novel every year and try to make some money to keep food on the table, because I would have been in a bad way the last 15 years.
Authors are often not who their readers assume them to be. So I'm just shortening, that's all I'm doing. I'm not changing the meaning.
The only thing I do now, I write a weekly column for the Vancouver province, and sort of they give me carte blanche to do whatever I want. I can write really contentious issues, or I do little pieces of fiction occasionally, or reminiscences, or whatever I'd like to do, which is quite fun because I don't need the money, I don't need to do it, but I still enjoy seeing my name in print. I mean, that's half the thrill of writing is your byline or seeing the cover of your book.
Years passed, and I was expected to be both native and a baseball expert. I came to fully experience the implied author syndrome. I think it's falling a little flat at the end.
It's close enough.
No, but I think you're lacking oomph in the closing.
If they've read that far, they don't need any oomph.
Don't defend a lack.
And we seriously consider exchanging gunfire over her editing my work.
Yes, I'm a brutal editor. Blah, 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 blah. I don't see anything else wrong with that paragraph. It flows,
Wow.
It flows really nice. Yes, you get the medal.
Yeah. I've been diabetic for going on 50 years, and it's starting to catch up to me. My kidneys aren't working quite the way they should, and my circulation isn't quite as good as it should be. It wouldn't surprise me if I died within the next 5 years. I mean, I wouldn't want to live to 95 like my mother. I mean, there's nothing wrong with leaving the party before the gin runs out. Life is hard and then you die, and that's all there is to it. Really, I've accomplished what I wanted to do. I've been very successful, and I've sold a lot of books, and I've had a pretty darn good life.
Excerpts from Bill's short stories are used in every testing material in North America, I'm sure, to test literacy or readership or to include in anthologies. There's a timeless appeal. I think a lot of his work will come back to haunt us in a good way.
He created amazing characters that will stand the test of time, you know, and they will be there forever.
I read Shoeless Joe, I saw Field of Dreams, and I just jumped in, just immersed myself and never wanted to come out. It was just a wonderful field of mental dreams. And so to finally make it here, and to make it here with my son and friend is just, it's another dream come true. Yeah. And we'll probably keep coming back and reliving the dream over and over again.
In literature, Kinsella isn't a fastball pitcher. His stories start in one place and then they end up someplace else. He throws curveballs.
It's the expansiveness of the game that I like. The other sports are twice enclosed, first by time limits and then by rigid playing boundaries. But on a true baseball field, the foul lines diverge forever, eventually taking in a good part of the universe, and that makes for myth and it makes for larger-than-life characters. And that, of course, is what a fiction writer is looking for. With baseball, the possibilities are endless.
Hit 342 with 92 RBI and 36 homers. Long fly ball to center.
When I finally went to bed, and after Annie inched into my arms in that way she has, like a cat that you suddenly find sound asleep on your lap, I told her about the voice, and I told her that I knew what it wanted me to do. "Oh, love," she said, "if it makes you happy, you should do it."